USLPA negotiation update. Is a boycott gathering steam in European football, and we go behind one of the boldest new badge designs in American soccer. That and much, much more on Wednesday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Good morning and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kickaround, the show where we dot the map of the ever-changing American soccer landscape from the frozen north. My name is Robert Kerr, local soccer guy, and to my side, Jason Davis, radio soccer guy. How are y'all feeling?
It's also the frozen mid-Atlantic. Maybe not quite as frozen as the north, but it's pretty cold. And we're supposed to get like, I don't know, 1.5 feet or something next week, Rob. I'm feeling very Michigander right now.
It's an Alberta Clipper. Did you know? It's an Alberta Clipper out there.
Is that what it is? Is that what it is? My wife said, we need to prepare. And I was like, oh, crap. I don't want to do any of that. I don't want to prepare for snow. And I'm ready for warm weather to come. But we're going to warm ourselves up by the cozy fire that is the ongoing saga of American soccer's development in this wonderful country of ours.
The warm, cozy subjects of labor negotiations, possible boycott of a World Cup. But we will do some fun stuff. We will go deep down and gritty into the design process of one of the new USL teams yet to hit the field. So we're counting down to kickoff with Atletico Dallas, and we're going to cover all those other subjects as well.
Let's say hi to the Ultras first. If you are a member of this channel, you are our best friends, and we love you very much. Thank you so much to Billy Bob Western for being here. Good morning to you. Any other Ultras on the scene who want to get their messages out, please hit us up right now. And we'll obviously highlight anybody who's supporting the program. If you want to support what we're doing, you can become a member of the channel, become an MK Ultra, get access to the Discord, which is just absolutely buzzing as a community. I know, it's
There's a whole new thread. There's a whole new thread on there.
A whole new thread. People are, we have this is how our community is growing. We have a thread for members of our Ultra community who are starting clubs or have started clubs in their own backyards, which is an incredible thing. The DIY ethic that is there latent in American soccer fans is pretty special, if you ask me. And so you can become an Ultra, engage those conversations. People have written guides on how to launch clubs in America that are in our Discord right now. So if you're one of those people who's like, man, how do I get a team near me? We have a how-to from our Ultras in our Discord.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing and such a great community we have budding there. And if you want to join it, it doesn't have to be to create a club. It could just be to banter about your local club.
You can banter. Absolutely. And look, we even allow for banter on non-American topics. We're pan soccer fans. You want to get into it with Rob about Liverpool? You're more than welcome to get into it with Rob about Liverpool. That's available as well.
Yeah, that's an easy target at the moment. We'll move right on past that and welcome Matt, not a member, but a very supportive member of the audience. Good morning, Matt. Welcome on in this morning. Let's get some members on board during the show today. We got a great show, like I said, and maybe we'll, extend the end of the show a little bit if we get some members on board or maybe even some super thanks. Bob out in Albuquerque has been amazing. I think he's donated a super thanks the last 3-4 episodes in a row. So shout out to Bob in Albuquerque.
You know what we should do today? We talked about hitting some topics that didn't make the cut for the main show. We can go members only today. We can do an Ultras only after the fact, after we get done talking to Sam Morton. If you want to listen in to the extra stuff, the topics that didn't make the big show, but are certainly important. There's some lower division, high-level amateur things happening, a new club departing one league for another. You want to get some thoughts on that from us and obviously what we're gleaning from people in the Discord. Become an Ultra, become a member, and we'll hit that button about 5 minutes out to warn you that we're going members only.
All right, before we get into the meat of the show, support, like we said, you can tell a friend, free. You can subscribe, free. MK Ultra, just a couple dollaroos. Mr. Bob. Again,
Mr. Bob.
Again, thank you so much.
We're going to build a statue. We're putting up a statue to Bob. That's what we need to do. That's pretty good. That's great, Bob. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
In addition, you can also help support the show. Just hit the subscribe button on social media platforms at Kickaround across the social media platforms. And also you can support our fundraising goals at ko-fi.com/Morning Kickaround, or write us an email, morningkickaround@gmail.com. We've been getting some great notes there, so keep those coming. You ready to do the show?
Let's go.
All right, long balls here on Wednesday's edition of Morning Kickaround. Here we go. Welcome on in. This is Morning Kickaround. I'm Robert. He's Jason. The USL and the Players Association still at loggerheads regarding a new CBA. There was a pair of negotiation sessions last week, but as our last update yesterday, there has been no significant progress.
There has been no progress. This came, I mean, obviously people are still tracking this story. If you are a fan of lower division soccer in America, if you're a fan of the USL Championship or any club in that league, if you like USL League One even, or if you are certainly intrigued by what USL is planning coming up in the next couple years, which includes a first division league as sanctioned by U.S. Soccer and promotion and relegation between 3 different levels of competition, you know that the USL CBA is looming, hanging over all of this. It expired, December 31st at midnight. They went the calendar year. They have been engaged in negotiations. Rob had asked, how can you keep signing contracts for players when you don't have a CBA? Well, as long as they're engaged in negotiations and everybody's good faith still is there, then they can sign players to contracts. And I see, every day I get an update. This USL team is signing somebody. That USL team is signing somebody else. Pittsburgh just re-upped a couple of their key players after their championship season. Like, these things are happening. You're like, oh, well, that must be good. We must be making progress. And yet it doesn't actually seem that way publicly. Now, we are not privy to what's happening in the meeting room. And Connor Tobin, I know he's been out there a little bit. I don't think he's given any recent, as in the last week, updates on any of this. But I had a back and forth with a baseball writer yesterday, actually, on Blue Sky, because she was noting that Medford, Oregon had passed some bill, the city council had passed some bill to help reinvigorate downtown Medford. And she was talking about how this could lead to maybe building a minor league baseball stadium for a team that's currently based in Eugene, Oregon, that might want to relocate to Medford because they can't get a stadium deal done in Eugene. And I chimed in and said, hey, they're also, Medford, getting pitched by minor league soccer. And I linked her to the actual civic, the website of the town of Medford, with that presentation by Justin Papadakis, which included, by the way, extending their letter of intent, their negotiating period, because they originally signed one in November. That was 6 months. And I think USL has realized they're not getting anything across the line in Medford in that first 6 months. So they asked for that extension for the rest of for a full calendar year. And I think the city of Medford has asked USL to maybe make some changes to some things. And so this writer, Jen Ramos Eisen, asked, or was saying, like, I need to check in on what's going on with the USLPA. And I said, as far as I know, whole lot of nothing. And then I went and checked on the Instagram account for the USLPA, and we get, this is the last post as of yesterday. Our housing is similar to low-cost housing. They were furnished with Amazon's cheapest options. We didn't have air conditioning for months, lots of flies. We found a dead bird when we moved in. That's from an anonymous championship player. So this is a campaign of information. You want to call this propaganda? You're absolutely right to call it propaganda, because what the USLPA is trying to do is continue to push that narrative that their players are being mistreated or not given the right standards to be professional soccer players. And in the description, which you can't actually see here in my screenshot, it goes on to say that there are clubs that do right by their players. There are clubs that give their players proper living conditions and meet other sort of professional standards for athletes. But there are other teams that just ignore that idea because they don't have any rules that require them to meet a certain standard, Rob. And that's what this is about, right? The USLPA is saying, hey, when we come to the table and we negotiate the CBA, it's not that we want the moon. We just want our players as a whole across the board, because we represent all of them. We don't just represent some USL players. We represent all of them. We want them all to have the possibility of having actual standards in terms of the treatment they get from their teams.
Yeah, the USLPA ended that post saying, we're not asking for luxury. We're asking for baseline professional standards that apply to every club.
And I think we can all agree not having dead birds in your apartment when you move in is at least a standard that USL should try to meet across its teams. And again, some of this is the light is being shined on USL. I mentioned this in the pre-show meeting. Remember when Sky Blue FC, which ultimately became Gotham, and ownership changed and things happened. But remember when Sky Blue FC was the subject du jour of American soccer because of how poorly they were treating their players, living standards, training facilities, showers in trailers. Like, it was a disaster. And that was bad for NWSL. Now, it sparked a change. It was bad for NWSL, but it was also one of those moments where you go, oh, we can't get away with hiding in the shadows anymore. People are paying attention to us. And you cannot have it where you want all the attention for expansion, for building stadiums, for launching a first division, for instituting pro rel, and then go, well, we can get away with some bad stuff over here. Or we can let our clubs do things like described in this anonymous championship players post or comments about their living standards. If you want to be big, if you want to grow, if you want to capture the attention of the American soccer public, then people are going to look at what you're doing or what your clubs are doing in your name, right? And this is in USL's name. And it doesn't matter if, oh, well, that club did it. No, USL, you were ultimately responsible.
You're saying the league is ultimately responsible for exactly what the clubs are doing?
Absolutely. You cannot say, well, that's not us. We're just the organizers of the competition. All of the clubs reflect back on you. Your reputation is tied to what those clubs do. And while, again, there are some very professional, very well-run, and very well-resourced clubs that do right by their players, you cannot say we're a first division soccer competition or we're a big-time professional soccer competition if your players are sleeping on the floor and there's dead birds and there's no air conditioning, there's flies everywhere. That is not good enough. And obviously also medical insurance, and of course, minimum salaries.
There's a comment in the chat here talking about needing to publish club names and holding them accountable. I feel like that probably won't happen unless we're getting really, really close. That's like the Hail Mary pass,
That's
right?
a nuclear thing. And unless some reporter, and this is the other thing, right? Obviously, and this is not really what we do, but maybe we need to be reaching out and maybe we need to be finding out who these clubs are. Because it doesn't seem like anybody else is going to do that work, right? That Sky Blue story, I believe Jeff Kassouf, who's now at ESPN, I think he was writing at the Equalizer at the time, was the guy who broke that story. And if not for Jeff Kassouf, would anybody have known what was going on with Sky Blue FC? I mean, would have anybody have cared? Because certainly the players knew, and they were probably telling people. But unless a reporter or a journalist or somebody who has a platform comes to them and says, hey, tell me what's going on here, and then publicizes that information, again, USL can kind of get away with, well, nobody really knows what's going on here, because nobody cares enough about us to do the work. And that's a problem for the USLPA that they're obviously trying to rectify by putting stuff out there like this.
Yeah, the CBA negotiations coming at a very inconvenient time as USL is like stepping into the spotlight. Some of the dirty laundry is
it can be harsh. It can be harsh. It kind of reminds me of when the world was shifting to HD, Rob, and we were going from old school televisions, tube television, to HD. And I remember there being this panic of like, oh my God, it's going to show all the flaws. Like the newscasters are going to look terrible because everyone's going to be able to see what they actually look like. And it's like, well, yeah, you adjust, but in this case, that's what USL is trying to do. They're trying to level up from old school, terrible cathode ray television to tube televisions to an HD level. And if you want to improve your quality, you've got to meet that standard.
Yeah, does USL need to get a hotter anchor or get better makeup? We'll see which one they opt for here.
And this is an interesting point by Riverside Grove, which is absolutely worth considering. This is one reason the USA model of leagues over clubs make it so much harder to build something. When clubs are in their fragile infancy, they need time to grow to get things right. Right? It is fraught to run a professional soccer club anywhere in the world, but especially in the United States. So if you are like if you could enter at the bottom and say, well, we're going to be an amateur club, and then, oh, we got some success and we made some money, we're going to move up a level. I mean, Detroit City is the only example, and Chattanooga to an extent, the only examples of this that we know of in America. It's really hard to build that way sort of organically over time with this idea of, well, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, or let's not try to be something we're not. And in a lot of cases, what you have are people who say, well, I got a couple $1 million lying around. I'm going to invest in a soccer team. And then you realize, oh, this is not a money-making concern. It's a money-losing concern. And then you start skimping and you start cutting around the edges. And then we end up with players in apartments with dead birds.
No one wants a dead bird in their apartment. And of course, we will continue following this story with any updates as they come. All right, let's take a breath and come right back with our next story of the day. All right, European leaders of football associations growing concern regarding the USA's interactions and possible annexation of Greenland. Per an article in The Guardian, leaders have been reluctant to act, but pressure is mounting for a reaction. It doesn't exactly quote a specific person, but it intimates that FIFA's leadership, who have forged close ties with Trump's government, are thought to deem such a development like a boycott unlikely at this point. But there is a boycott petition in the Netherlands nearing 90,000 signatures as of Tuesday night.
Look, I mean, you don't need to be an expert in geopolitics to understand that if the United States continue to push forward on this Greenland thing, Denmark is a member of the European Union, an ally of most of those nations in Europe. Obviously, UEFA represents Europe on the world stage. You got FIFA based in Europe. All these things are tied together that if something happens, there may need to be a response. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what Europe should do. I'm not. That's not. I'm extremely uncomfortable with all of these things. That's the bottom line for me, and it sucks. And again, I'll kind of speak for everybody here, I think, when I say, God damn it, why are you ruining the best possible thing for soccer fans in the history of American sports? I mean, like 94, 2026, these are supposed to be incredible moments. And here we are potentially looking at something that could upend even more so than FIFA's issues with the ticket prices and everything else. And of course, immigration policies, which I definitely think are going to impact the World Cup, even if there may be some end runs around the current policies that are in place. I don't know what Europe should do, but you are looking at a situation that feels like it would require a response if things get military. Now, I think it would be easy and probably foolish to go, well, they won't actually do anything. And even if they do, it'll happen after the World Cup. We don't know that. And of course, Europe has to have a contingency. Of course, European leaders, football or otherwise, have to have a plan. The football leaders are not the same people that are running these countries. So they are only reacting to what's going on. But I can only imagine a situation where the head of state of Denmark goes to the head of the FA of Denmark and says, nah, we're not going. You can't do this. We can't go and play in a World Cup in a country that is currently trying to invade part of our country. Like, or is trying to grab it through force, or trying to bully the international community into making us give up something that belongs to us, right? And I'm again not going to get into the arguments of why the U.S. needs Greenland. I'll let you decide if any of those have validity, if they actually have any merit. But right now, this is a part of Denmark. So then, if Denmark says, "Well, we can't play," what is Sweden and Norway and Germany and Netherlands, 90,000 signatories on this petition, or anybody else in Europe going to do when the alternative is to leave Denmark on an island with all of this? And maybe this doesn't do anything to actually cow the ambitions of the person who wants to get Greenland, but it still is there are necessary things. So sort of, you have to respond in some way. And of course, look, sports ultimately, while they're incredibly important, are not the most important thing. And we also have this idea of sports bringing us together. And if one country is acting belligerent towards another, generally speaking, you don't engage with them in sports. Russia gets kicked out of international competitions because of their aggression towards Ukraine. If the United States, and you can make all the caveats you want, how it's not the same thing, but if the United States acts aggressively towards Greenland, how is it any different? And of course, it's complicated by the fact the World Cup is happening in this country, and including Mexico and Canada. And maybe Mexico and Canada take the burden, and everything gets really messed up. I don't know, Rob. It's tough.
That would be pretty wild. There's 79 games scheduled to be hosted in the United States, and
the final. Yeah, of course, yeah.
That's a huge amount of games to reschedule, and that seems unwieldy, and it really puts these institutions in an untenable and near impossible position. These guys all got into this to legislate, a sport and to forward the sport and whatever means comes with that lifestyle. But I'm sure they didn't ever get into this job thinking they're going to have a say in geopolitics and how this all plays out.
Can I also say that that's something that we as fans in this country, and anybody traveling to the U.S. is going to have to deal with this on some level, whether it's good or bad, I don't know, but it's something to look out for. And again, I'm not an expert on any of these things. I am just a concerned person, relatively intelligent, can read the news, okay, and has an interest in the world. If Europe decides that one of the levers they can pull to try to push back on all of this is economic, and already you're seeing a trickle of certain funds pulling money out of U.S. markets, if Europe decides to do that en masse, then the U.S. economy could be tanked, at which point you're holding a World Cup in a country with a crippled economy because of this particular action around belligerent aggression towards a part of a European country. I mean, everything is very dumb right now. Everything is extremely dumb. And I'll reference the internet. Everybody's 12 and everything is dumb.
Yeah. When we started this show just over a year ago, I don't think that we foresaw this topic necessarily being a mainstay of the show, but here we are. And these comments and this story in The Guardian stem from UEFA Executive Committee in Budapest. And this UEFA Executive Committee is set to formally convene again in Brussels on February 11th. So you'd imagine nothing concrete, if anything, will ever happen, would happen before that official meeting in February. All right, we've got a great guest coming up at the top of the hour, but we're going to have a little bit of fun before him. So we're going to come right back and talk MLS Kits 2026 here in just a sec. MLS 2026 is right around the corner. We got some preseason going on, lots of transfers, but we also have a look at the 2026 MLS Kits. And there is an article in footyheadlines.com, I believe, that kind of has a whole menagerie of the new kits that have come out. And the first thing I saw when I opened this up is that Barcelona in the Major League Soccer.
Yeah, the way that Real Salt Lake has decided to lean into a name that references one giant Spanish club, several others too. I'm not forgetting about Betis or Oviedo or Sociedad. But of course, when people hear Real, they think Madrid. And then to use the color scheme of the other team, the other massive team in Spain of Barcelona, and then to have kits that are basically looking like Barca kits is interesting to say the least. I mean, I don't want to be too judgy here. That sure does scream Barcelona, doesn't it?
Yeah, I was like this. Is there something new coming in Major League Soccer? I mean, same colors, same stripes. It's pretty wild. And then, yeah, to be the competing Spanish giants all within one kit is quite an undertaking.
I wonder if RSL, I mean, we've seen rebrands, right? MLS teams have rebranded before. Sometimes it ends up being a tweak rather than a full rebrand. Like I think about the Revolution and their badge switch. You got, I think Seattle, obviously they did a badge adjustment, and I think they've even pondered maybe changing their name via some. Well, they put it out there as like, hey, would you want the Sounders to change their name? And the people went, no, we don't want that at all. FC Dallas, a long time ago, rebranding from the Dallas Bird. I mean, I'm just thinking about some teams that are rebranded. could RSL be a candidate for a rebrand, or do you think this is entrenched enough that they shouldn't do that? And I'm not saying that. Well, I don't love it. I can't pretend I love it. I just made my peace with RSL, I guess, Rob.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wouldn't even say this is the best version of the Barcelona kit either. And then what is this comment on screen? I got a survey from RSL yesterday that seemed to hint around a rebrand. Interesting. Some news on the ground there.
This is a club with relatively recent new ownership, right? Is it Ryan Miller that, or no, that's not right. He sold it, and now the same family that owns the Jazz own RSL. So when you get a change like that, when you get a major change in terms of who's running the club, sometimes those people go, oh, we should maybe think about rebranding. Partly because they want to change something so that feels like it's theirs, but also because sometimes these things are stale, and there is. Originally RSL got absolutely raked over the coals for going with the name they chose. And they made a whole thing about how they got permission from somebody. They asked some guy in Spain. They called up the random Spanish number, and they're like, can we name our club Real? And they were like, sure, no problem. And so they're Real Salt Lake. I don't know. I think maybe it would be better to be something different. But I guess if you got that color scheme, you might as well be like Barcelona. Rob, you might as well.
So I'm curious, that leads me to think, you said the new ownership group also owns the Jazz. Could we be getting a musically themed soccer team?
No, I don't think so. Because so here's the thing that's so funny about this is Real Salt Lake, what everybody thought that was a terrible name. It takes a long, long time. You just kind of get used to it. And maybe you don't think it's good, but you kind of just accepted that's what it is. And the Utah Jazz are the same thing, because that's a team that was in New Orleans, where jazz is a major part of the culture. And so they were called the New Orleans Jazz. And you're like, oh, that makes sense. And they moved to Utah. And they're like, well, we're not changing it. And you're like, Jazz in Utah? What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. They didn't bother switching it. So I hope not. I hope not.
All right. This is not to. I'm sure this is just in jest, but I thought that this was the Utah Storm and Mormons.
Well,
is
they did name their hockey team Mammoth, right? Then isn't Utah Mammoth the name of the hockey team in Salt Lake that moved over from Phoenix? So they can be creative in Utah, I guess. So we'll see. What are the ones? I know there's one that's not in this graphic that I think we're going to be talking about here in a second, Rob. But who in this graphic stands out? So that's NYCFC, Columbus, Fire, Inter Miami, DC United, San Jose, and Atlanta.
So I'm going to just like rapid fire here. Columbus, that's plainer than it was, but I'm sure some fans are happy to move away from Charlie Brown. So not an earth-shattering kit, but not Charlie Brown anymore. The Fire, a little plain. Don't love the giant sponsorship in the middle of the Inter Miami. That the anchor outweighs it. Is that going to slow them down? And then the other one that speaks out to me, interesting, the Earthquakes going full tie-dye.
Full tie-dye. I think I got a close-up of that one. This is interesting. Look,
like that away in my closet.
I'm not a tie-dye guy. That's not a thing. I'm not a deadhead. I haven't traveled around with jam bands. I don't love the hip aesthetic. It's not my thing. Just not my. For me, if you want to ride with it, make it your identity. I don't own any Birkenstocks, for example, Rob. It's in my closet. But this is, at least it's bold. I don't know there's no sponsor on this. Do they have a sponsor? Is it Amway? Who's their sponsor right now? I don't know who their sponsor is. I don't love this one. I don't love their badge either, but that's a different thing. I think before.
It's not boring. It's not boring.
No, it's not. Before we run out of time, though, this is one you wanted to talk about, right? This is San Diego.
So I did hear people lament that last year's white kit was just, plain straight up white. And so I guess they have moved beyond that. But to me, it kind of looks, I don't want to be too harsh or critical, but to me, it looks like maybe an unfinished design. Producer Jenny, shout out to Jenny. Thank you for helping us out. She said that perhaps it looked like maybe they'd taken this paintballing.
Yeah, it kind of looks like a barbed wire kind of thing to me for some reason, which I don't think is great for a border town, but I don't know.
I didn't even think about that. Jeez,
no,
Louise,
it's
not. Dark.
It's not. I thought this was a Mets shirt at first, says Scred Red. Okay. I mean, all right. It's got that kind of vibe to it. Look, if you're going to do a light colored shirt, at least have something on it. I'm sure there's something. I can see that there's a tag down there in like multiple colors that I think says SDTJ. So this definitely is a reference to Tijuana. It has to be. If that's down, can you see that? I know maybe your eyes aren't good enough for that. Pretty sure that tag says SDTJ. So we're gonna find out. There's a story behind that tag and behind this color scheme. I'm sure.
Yeah, that's probably something you probably won't notice that color mark all that much from the television broadcast, but it could, liven it up for casual wear. And, all those things, there's a lot to take into account with designing a kit, from, the up close personal details to how it looks wearing casually to how it looks on television and on camera. And I'm sure that'll be amongst the topics we discuss with our next guest. We got Sam Morton coming up. We're going to count down to kickoff with Atletico Dallas. And as we're going, hit subscribe, consider becoming a member, and support Morning Kickaround in any way you see fit. All right, let's bring in Sam Morton. Countdown to kickoff. Atletico Dallas up next on Morning Kickaround. Welcome on in. This is Countdown to Kickoff, and with 423 days until kickoff, we have Sam Morton, CCO and co-founder of Atletico Dallas, to talk about the design of the bold brand that Dallas's new team is going for, and then talk about promoting a team that has not yet hit the field. Good morning, Sam, and welcome again to Morning Kickaround.
Hey, good morning, guys. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you, Sam. I hope it's gone well so far, 3 weeks in. You gave us a lot today, so I'm really interested.
You can pick and choose, wanted to make sure you had plenty to cover.
I do think, though, we want to lean into what you like out of this. We'll go through the logo design process a little bit, some of the things, the inspiration and things like that. And we have a couple of videos that maybe we could play as well. And I know you had a community event. So let's start there before we get to the branding stuff, which is a little drier. You tell me about connecting with the people of Dallas as you are still, a year and change away from putting your team on the field in a meaningful game.
Yeah. I think that, you talk about the year-end event. We had a block party, we called it, and it was on the location of where we'll build our first street court. And then adjacent to that, we'll have a supporter bar. And all of this is within about an 8-minute walk of the Cotton Bowl, just outside of the gates of Fair Park. We were fortunate enough to, through Kyle and our Kyle Martino, one of our partners, get connected with Player, which is an app for footballers to connect with clubs all across the globe. Patrice Evra is a founder of that business, and we were fortunate enough that Patrice was in the States and made an appearance with us Saturday night last December at our block party. So we had vendors. We had a Tifo Mark that was doing a jersey swap. We had Pana set up. We had any number of DJ. It was a really great event, and we were really pleased with the turnout.
Yeah, it looks like a great crowd there. Fun was had. So was there any ball played here, or was it just hanging out and partying?
Yeah, just hanging out. So we had a Pana. We had Mesa Ball, which is the kind of octagon ping pong soccer game. It was amazing, all the different versions of soccer now. When I was growing up, it was pretty much 11v11, and now there's, I don't know how many different versions of the game. It's all great. We want to support all of it, but not any real competitive soccer being played. But again, this was on the ground that we'll build our first street court, and we're really excited. There it is. We're really excited. We're really excited to bring this to market.
Yeah, my apologies for the images getting a little weird, and this may be not the best version of this, but this is the rendering of what you want to build where that block party was happening, right? That's what you were saying.
Yes, sir. Yeah, well, we did the block party right there where you see the court, essentially.
And so catch us up on that part, because I know I read a story about some money coming your way, right? Some incentives coming to Atletico Dallas to get this done.
Yeah, we rewind. This time last year we were in talks with the city of Garland on a big complex, and that fell through midsummer. And truthfully, it was a blessing. Matt and I were able to connect with the group that owns all these buildings right outside of Fair Park. Evan and Jordan August. And this felt more like us, right? These are real historic buildings. in Dallas, just a little south of downtown. And as soon as we walked in, they're restoring these beautiful buildings with, tall ceilings and open windows, and it's a really cool vibe. And we knew immediately that we needed to be down here. So to your point, Jason, we put a deal together with August Real Estate to move our headquarters down there. We'll build about a 12,000 square foot corporate headquarters that will have about 1,000 square foot of retail space, street facing retail space. And then just down the road, maybe 500 feet, will be this development, which will be the street court and the den, which will be a bar with a private club up top, for suite holders, season ticket holder, a membership type club.
Wow, that's a significant footprint. Not only are you talking about this den and the street court where you had the party, which is pretty cool how you had the party at the same place where the development will be, but that office, 12,000 square feet, that's an incredible footprint and almost a stamp of permanence that that's got to send a message there locally. I imagine the event that you had, though, presented your logo and your look to a lot of people that may or may not have seen it, especially not up close and personal like that. What was kind of some of the reaction that you guys heard?
I think more than anything, it's gratitude. I mean, I think a lot of people that live, within a 10, 15-mile radius of downtown in Dallas, South Dallas, East Dallas, are just thankful that a club's coming their way that's going to be in their backyard. I think that, we always say here, we want to do cool S. So, we want our gear to be cool. We want our logo to be cool. And I think that, so far we're off to a pretty good start. We were introduced to a lot of new people who this is the first event of them coming out to an Atletico Dallas event. And I think we made a good first impression for the community. It was a free event. We didn't charge any. There was no charge to get in. Everyone who had made a season ticket deposit thus far is a kind of inaugural member of this 1841 club. Each of those members that came got a free couple of drinks. Again, we had a really great time. And having Patrice there obviously was just a home run. We were able to spend the day with him. We took him to a real famous Texas barbecue place, which he had never experienced before, which was a riot. He talked about that at every chance I saw him that weekend. He reminded me how great the barbecue was. So yeah, it was a really great event. On Sunday, we put together a little showcase match. We had some college players that were in our crest, and then player had put together a side, and we did an 11v11 game. And then the player app will start putting out some social media and some short form storytelling around their app as it comes to the United States.
You're talking about wanting to have the brand and your activities and your events be cool. And I got to say, the hat you're rocking, pretty cool like that. Definitely got some Raiders vibes coming from you there. But you have sent us some really cool process art of the development of this badge that's unlike any badge in American sports, really, especially American soccer. And so I guess walk us through here, because you've presented us some really cool step-by-step art of how you ended up where you were with the logo.
These were labeled inspiration in the package of things that Sam sent us. So yeah, I mean, you can see it's pretty obvious where this is coming from. There is a little bit, I know also in terms of the origin of the brand, you sent us a couple of videos and maybe we'll watch one or two of those, but there's this idea of the snake and the wolf. If you're not from Texas, is that a thing in Texas?
Wolves and snakes?
Yes.
Snakes, 100%. The gray wolf was hunted to extinction in the 40s.
Okay.
But prior to that, certainly the Mexican gray wolf was prevalent on the prairies of Texas. And I'm sure as you get further south or out west, occasionally you'll see that. But certainly, yes, the history of Texas would be accurate.
Okay. And these images kind of lead us into, let's start sketching what this might look like. We got some beginning elements here. Go ahead.
Yeah, what's unique about this is our crest is hand drawn. This was not graphic art. This was hand drawn by someone in the UK. And these are kind of different iterations. We've got a whole shoebox actually here in the office of probably 80 different sketches of kind of where he started, where he stopped, what we tweaked. We, originally, like that first inspiration, the snake was in the wolf's mouth initially on the crest. and we decided that maybe was a little, too edgy. And so we decided to kind of, make it more yin and yang feel. But this was a hand-drawn crest. Obviously, we reproduced it digitally, but the original crest, and we've got an original piece of art. That's the final copy that looks, it's beautiful. It'll be hung up in our headquarters for all to see.
Yeah, I'm kind of working our way through these images that Sam sent me. You can see the kind of up close and some of the detail here. I mean, giving the wolf's eye some color, I imagine, was a choice that the designers thought about, and what color should it be, and again the backdrop of it. It's the most dramatic badge in American soccer. I think that's fair to say. You said that you guys want to do cool S. You want to. I think edginess is kind of the center of what you guys are doing, Sam. And I so this is that, right? This is that in the badge form.
I think edginess, but also classic, right? Like, you go and look around Europe, you'll see badges like this, maybe not to this extent, but you'll see, whether it's lions or, rooster, like you'll see animals and you'll see simple crest work. That's kind of that classic look. And to us, the first goal with all of this is we wanted to do something that would garner this reaction, right, Jason? Like, what is this? Like, we've not seen this. We wanted something totally unique. The colors, quite honestly, were personal choices. Matt and I are both fans when we were kids of the Netherlands, and that baby blue is kind of a color, orange and blue. Matt played on a club team when we were younger that had orange and blue. And yes, we wanted to go with something that was unique. We settled on Texas topaz, silver ore, and Blackland crude. All colors of Texas.
The colors of so again, those colors, I imagine, are a choice, and you're talking through them, and the designer's saying one thing, and you guys are going back and forth. And we do have people asking, did you consider different colors for the snake and the wolf to maybe set them off against each other a little bit more?
There was different iterations and shading. I think that we settled on the colors pretty quickly. Levels of darkness and shade probably were discussed. Like Rob said, we want to have kind of a cultural brand, and he mentioned my hat and the giving off Raiders vibes, and we think that we can accomplish that with our logo, our crest, our gear here in Dallas, where it becomes, a cultural thing to wear 10 years from now, 15 years from now.
Yeah. One more question about the badge, just because we have talked to other people that have worked on club logos and such. And, is there any concern that this is tough to reproduce, or are you guys confident this is something that you can put in any iteration that it needs to be in?
Yeah, we're confident in that. And if we can't reproduce it on something, then we just won't print it. We're not going to print something that's, poor quality. We've already reproduced and kind of working through different types of material for our badge, whether it's synthetic or rubber or whatever. So we've got different iterations all over the office already, just to see kind of what crest we like the most and how much detail we can get on that badge.
And for clarity here, I don't know if anyone's wondering out there, but you guys have designed the badge and you have merch, but you haven't produced a kit yet, right?
No, we did a launch kit when we launched the brand, last May. I believe we were one of the first USL clubs to have an actual kit come to market when we launched the club. We originally rolled out a black and blue version, topaz version of the kit. It's just simple. It says Dallas 1841 on the side, which is the year Dallas was founded. And then we came out later in the year and did a silver ore. So now all our fans can have, kind of that hat trick of our jerseys, and be part of that founding edition, founding collection. But we did pretty well. We sold nearly 2,000 jerseys last year.
That's pretty solid for a team that doesn't have a player or a coach or any of that stuff. That's great. Obviously you guys have a runway here. I do think that in terms of the background on the badge, maybe there's a little bit. I know you sent over some videos. Can you set up? There's 3 episodes you sent me. Tell me which ones you think are the best to watch here, and maybe tell us what we're going to see.
Remind me. Let me pull up that email.
Okay, it's okay. It's the origin. Atletico Origin. We got 3 episodes. I think they're all little.
That's our designer. That's Robert Milam, owner of Modest Works, who was our lead on this project.
Okay, so I think again, there's 3 of them. I think based on what I've watched, maybe episode 2 is a good place to start. There's a little bit about the history of Dallas, which is interesting to me, but I'm not sure it has a ton to go. But here, let's listen into Robert talk about the design process.
Top predators in the area at a time when we were being inspired by. So we're being inspired by the development of Dallas. When it was first founded, this area was home to the Mexican gray wolf. That was the apex predator, not the coyote. Now the coyote is, but then the apex predator was the gray wolf. I didn't even know that until we did that research. But then when we kind of combined that with these images we were seeing of the coyotes and the snakes in battle, I started to do research on, are there wolves that now fight snakes, and what's really happening? That is a true thing that happens, not because the rattlesnake wants to fight the wolf, it's because the wolf wants to eat the rattlesnake. The really cool thing is that the rattlesnake can kill the wolf and will kill the wolf in defense. And so even though most of the time the wolf is going to get the upper hand, the truth is the rattlesnake can kill it. And we felt like that was a beautiful picture of an underdog story of a new team coming into the USL Championship, but also it's a historical connection to Dallas.
What I appreciate here, Sam, is that there's not, when you guys, when your logo came out, and I do have an image here that kind of, it says behind the crest, and I think there's a couple of things that say, the snake represents this and the wolf represents this, but there's not like this detail. Oh, this little element represents, I don't know, whatever Texan identity or whatever, It's not like you guys went super deep on this. At the same time, you are clearly, based on what Robert just said in that video, tying yourselves back to Texas and thinking about Dallas and those kind of things.
Yeah, if you do a little homework on Dallas, the city of Dallas is the largest city that's not on a body of water. You go back 100, 150 years, there's no reason the city of Dallas should even exist. Every large city that was, developed hundreds of years ago were around water. And Dallas was a prairie. And, so for someone to have the vision to come and I'm going to set up my tent here, just shows kind of the grittiness and the history of the city, that it's built on, underdogs that see vision, for a piece of land or a city to be. And again, I think our logo kind of represents that. And it maybe not so in your face way, but again, I think that, the battle is important. We're full of battles, right? Whether it's on the field or whether it's in business, every day we're, coming up against obstacles and things like that. And, we just want to embody that. And I think that the city of Dallas is an inspiration, and that's where we landed here.
And it's definitely an interesting mix between the two. You had a point, Jason?
No, go ahead, Rob.
I was going to say, looking at the badge more and more, it just makes me feel like on the edge of danger. Like the wolf might have it under control, but it might not. There's a battle going on. It could be dangerous. It's right on the cusp of it. It's like danger percolating under the surface.
Well, maybe this is too far, Sam, but yeah. But I also was thinking, like, again, based on your badge choice, because it is unique, because it stands out, because it's not sort of typical of American soccer at the very least, it does feel like you've got a higher degree of difficulty and kind of it could go very, very well, right? It's a risk reward thing, I guess.
Yeah, I guess you could look at it like that. We've gotten, I'd say for the most part, good feedback. There's obviously the keyboard warriors that come out and make, it looks like, something from, Harry Potter or Game of Thrones and all those sort of references. But, at the end of the day, I've said this before, I in large part grew up in Dallas. And when I see a blue star, I know it's Dallas Cowboys. It doesn't need to say Dallas Cowboys. It doesn't need to say Cowboys. It doesn't need to say anything. I know what the blue star is. And Matt and I want to have this vision of what 20 years looks like. And we feel in 20 years, when you see the logo, you'll know it's Atletico Dallas. And the league kind of, fought us on that. We needed a city identifier. We have a version of the crest that does have Dallas on it. And every crest in the USL, I think, has the city on it, if I'm not mistaken. So there was some discussion around that. But we're going to use the non-Dallas version as much as we can, and we'll identify as Dallas in other ways.
Let me. I want to come back to that. The idea that the league pushed back. This kind of relates to some things we're talking about around labor negotiations, which I'm not going to ask you about. But the idea that USL has a different kind of model than some other American sports, American soccer leagues, at the very least. So in the case of, say, MLS. MLS has a much firmer hand in directing what clubs might do with their intellectual property like that in terms of design and things like that, because everybody shares ownership of the league. You guys are completely independent, so it didn't really matter what USL said unless they wanted to kick you out for something ridiculous.
Well, I mean, it mattered. We want to be good partners with the league, and they've got.
But it's just about good faith. It's not about any legal requirements.
Yeah, no, there are guidelines certainly for logos and crest and colors and or how big the numbers need to be and all those sorts of things for the jerseys. And we've got some some fences to stay in, but but again, it was a discussion. Like the first reaction, the first batch we sent, we didn't send anything with Dallas. We sent the full color version, the black version. You've seen some. We also used a version where it's just the outline of the beast. Those are the versions. So we've got different iterations and ways to color this thing. And our original submission to the league didn't have that, but didn't have Dallas. And so we do have a version that's the full color version that has Dallas at the top of it. And we do use that. Our card magnets that we sell in our shop, that's the version that we use. And we've used it on a shirt with a big crest on the back that says Dallas. But in large part, we just go with what we call the beast logos. And if you see one that's not colored, we call that the little beast. And if you see the colored one, we just call that the beast.
Oh, that's interesting. Getting its own in names, which is great to see. And definitely the design aspect behind it is definitely very fun and great to see that the creativity being brought out here. But because you guys have been so busy there at the club, you talked about you got a new building, you've had welcome parties with Patrice Evra, these great behind the crest details. But another big piece that you have accomplished since we last spoke to you, you've added 8 new front office staff members. And we were talking earlier how we have a whole thread of our channel members of people interested or already in the process of creating their own teams. So in the build out to building towards a professional club, what front office pieces did you add in this early stage of this build out?
Yeah, I mean, the first piece we needed to build out was our marketing department, because for all of last year and this next 423 days, that's what we are, right? We're a marketing company to make sure that people know who we are, but also convince them to take action, whether it's buy a ticket, buy a shirt, something, right? We've got to connect with the community as best we can. So we built out our full marketing department, which contains a CMO, a couple social media, and we also have a big street team with 3 part-time employees. We have a van that we're out. I think I told you last time on the show, we were out almost 90 times, last year at different community events. This year we've added a general counsel. We decided to bring a general counsel in. It was actually more cost effective for us to have a general counsel kind of strategy officer versus just using an attorney in an hourly rate. Obviously, you can imagine the amount of attorney work that a club probably incurs, either it's licensing or employee agreements, or there's all sorts of and we're trying to do some real estate, so there's agreements for that. And so it was just a better decision for Matt and I to get a general counsel on board. Dan Finn, sharp guy. He's going to do way more than just be our general counsel. He's a good strategy, good business guy. We've onboarded a COO who started actually this week. Andrew Forrest was actually at El Paso Locomotives for the last 8-9 years as their president. We've got a head of ticketing that will start here in the next few days as we build out our ticketing department. Let's see, head of hospitality who was heading our project for the Den and our courts. He's going to help build out the restaurant, staff that. So yeah, we woke up, January the 1st or 5th or whatever that first Monday was back. And we had gone from like 11 people to like 18 people. So it's nice to come in and see a full office, community outreach manager, which is an important part of our club to form relationships with, the community is kind of like this generic term. Let's connect with the community, but you got to be laser focused on what parts of the community, what organizations we want to align with, what values match our values. And so her responsibility is obviously to go out and find those. She comes from us, from the Dallas Wings. Again, we're not quite fully built out yet, but we're getting there. Our first team manager is actually in the office. We have not released who that's going to be yet. We'll release that after the Super Bowl, week after the Super Bowl. Stay tuned. But we're excited to have him in the office as well.
Was he told very, very directly, do not walk behind Sam while he's doing this interview?
Yeah, exactly.
Blow the surprise.
Yeah, blow the surprise.
That's obviously great. I mean, that's obviously the step towards what the on-field product is going to look like, Sam. And you're not a soccer team if you don't have soccer coaches and soccer players, which is great.
Absolutely.
I do know, I think we should finish this though. And I expect that we will talk again in the near future. And maybe as we get closer to the summer and, let's maybe prime the pump a little bit. Cause I know Atletico Dallas obviously wants to be a big presence in soccer around the tournament that's happening this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of the reason for our project down near Fair Park, the Den, again, I told you it was an 8-minute walk from the Cotton Bowl, probably about a 12-minute walk, 15-minute walk maybe, to the FIFA fan zone. It's going to be right there at Fair Park. So the official fan zone for Dallas is in Fair Park. We're hoping to capitalize, with our activation. The court will be set up. We'll do some kind of temporary F&B. We're going to have a temporary retail shop right there, again, to kind of activate in and around that big tournament that you're talking about.
Well, Sam, thank you so much for your time, and get some rest. You sounds like you've been extremely busy over there. And just one quick, did you say 90 events in 2025?
Yeah, I think we did 86. I think it was the actual number. I don't want to get out and lie, but I think we did 86 different events. That's really just starting from May 2nd last year.
Well, Atletico Dallas getting out into the community, getting active as they have 423 days until kickoff. Sam, co-founder of Atletico Dallas, thank you so much for joining us here on Countdown to Kickoff.
Thanks, guys. Good talking to you.
All right. Thank you, Sam, once again. And if you enjoyed that segment, be sure to hit subscribe. Recommend this show to your friends if you think that there's somebody that might like to dig into this kind of content. And, throw us a thanks if you're so inclined as well. You can also support us on social media at Kickaround across the social media platforms, or write us an email, morningkickaround@gmail.com. All right. We're going to come right back with a little bit of something. What you got?
No, that's not what we're doing. Rob, that's not what we're doing. I'm going to hit the button and we're going to go members only in 1 minute. As soon as I hit the button, and I will give you a warning when that's happening. So if you are an ultra, if you're a member, you had access to our post-show discussion, which will be freewheeling. We'll dive into some things we haven't talked about yet, some big topics that are out there. That defection from the NPSL is in the news. We've also got a wild story about an MLS manager getting conned or potentially kidnapped. We're going to talk about those things. So I'm hitting the button right now. It is underway. You have less than 1 minute to become an ultra and join that feed if you are, or during that stream. If you are already an ultra, then the countdown is here, and you will be transferred over to the members. Apparently, Rob is cold. It's freezing in Michigan. He needs an extra coat. He needs an extra layer. So that's what he's doing with 30 seconds left to go in the regular show. Rob, are you good?
Yeah, I was trying to hold out. I wanted to show off my awesome Oakland County FC shirt, but as we were talking to Sam there, my legs were kind of shaking from being cold here, so I had to bite the bullet. And this is my hunker down hoodie that's got like the fur and the multiple layers in to keep me warm. So that'll prepare me for a good bonus segment here if I'm a little bit warmer. So thank you everyone that's joined in.
You need that extra. Okay, we have 7 seconds.
Welcome back in. This is Morning Kickaround bonus.